In some exciting news for Muppet fans, the early 90s Dinosaurs TV series is coming to Disney Plus at the end of January. I've always loved this show, and it holds up incredibly well in 2021. Although a lot of people probably know it first and foremost as the show where a baby dinosaur regularly hit his dad with a frying pan while shouting, "Not the mama," it was a lot more than just that. Not that I don't love Baby Sinclair, of course, as you'll soon see. The show revolved around a family of dinosaurs, the Sinclairs. Earl, the father, was the breadwinner who worked for the We Say So Corporation as a tree pusher, who cleared land for his company's morally questionable developments. Fran was the mother and was much smarter than Earl, although she often didn't get the credit she deserved. The two elder kids, Robbie and Charlene, could sometimes come across as a little vapid. Robbie was obsessed with rocking out and trying to impress girls, and Charlene being a shopaholic, but they were actually very insightful and sought to make the world a better place, something the adults usually scoffed at or actively tried to stop. And finally, there was the one and only Baby Sinclair, a rather sadistic child who used his cuteness to get away with his mischief. While the show's characters all fell into the standard sitcom formula, their escapades were often broader and more satirical in nature than other shows airing around the same time. The idea was that their civilization was still developing, and they would deal with concepts that are commonplace to us but new to them. Ideas like war, religion, and racism were all covered, but handled in an often absurd satirical manner. To celebrate the show, I've made a list of my top 10 episodes. Some of them deal with social and political issues that were going on at the time of the show's production, and are often still relevant today, while some episodes are purely fun entertainment. There will be some spoilers, so I've added timestamps to this one if you want to skip a particular entry. At the risk of blathering on even more, let's just start with number 10. Number 10. What Sexual Harass Meant. Starting on the social issues end of things, this episode, filmed in November 1991, was largely based on the Clarence Thomas-Anita Hill hearing that had just happened 2 months earlier. However, the story is played out in a way that could be applicable to many other scenarios, since the subject is harassment in the workplace. Fran's friend, Monica DeVertebrae, has become a We Say So tree pusher, and immediately has to deal with foreman Al Harris, also known as Sexual Harris, the inventor of the double entendre. When she calls him out on his unwanted and inappropriate advances, he fires her. Monica takes her case to the We Say So board, which ends up getting broadcast live on TV for all to see. Of course, things don't go her way in the slightest, with the men on the board barely hiding how against her they are. Like most of the satirical episodes in this series, the jokes are all very funny, but they show a good amount of care in taking the subject they're lampooning seriously. For all the courtroom absurdity, the message is clear that society needs to continually change, evolve, and improve. This episode also does not get a standard happy ending that one might expect. It doesn't get an entirely unhappy one either. Although Monica ultimately loses the case, it at least inspires Charlene to want to work to achieve a better future for women, so Monica's efforts were not in vain. I'll admit that this might have been a somewhat more downbeat episode to start the list, but it does a good job of demonstrating the series' strengths, in that it's not just a standard sitcom with a prehistoric gimmick.
Mother, this is an important real-life event. It'll make the kids think.
I don't want the kids to think. I want the kids to watch safe little situation comedies with time-tested, repetitive storylines.
Number 9. When Food Goes Bad. This episode is on the opposite end. It's not satirical, it's not addressing any kind of pressing social issues, it's just fun. Charlene is mad that Earl doesn't think she's responsible, with him favoring the older Robbie instead. Robbie is put in charge of babysitting, but he bails and leaves Charlene to deal with Baby Sinclair, who's always a major handful. Charlene must prove she's as responsible as she says she is when Baby lets the food out of the fridge. Allow me to explain. One of the more morbid running gags in the series is that the dinosaurs are all carnivores, and their refrigerator is stocked with live creatures, all of them lower on the food chain waiting to be devoured. In the show's fun musical album, Big Songs, the food even gets a number called Be a Herbivore, where they try to convince Earl to eat something else for a midnight snack. When Food Goes Bad is their shining moment. Led by General Chow, the food takes over the house and threatens to kill Baby if their ludicrous demands are not met. I remember hearing someone say this episode felt like Gremlins, and that's probably not a coincidence. Kirk Thatcher, the episode's co-writer, had previously done puppetry and voice work for the Gremlin movies. It's hard not to sympathize with the food creatures here. They revolt against their captors, and they ultimately lose, sadly retreating to their chilly prison in the end. While a lot of dinosaur episodes are ones that have a deeper meaning, this is one of the times where it's better if you don't think about it too much. It's a fun, darkly comic episode perfect for Halloween, and I love the designs of the revolting food, along with all the other weird critters that pop up throughout the series. Number 8. Wilderness Weekend. This episode takes a lighter look at gender roles and relations than number 10 on our list did. Earl takes Robbie, Baby, and his male friends on a wilderness expedition called the Great Hunt. It is meant to be a sacred time for them to bond and harken back to their primitive alpha male roots. But it's really an excuse to eat and drink in the woods. Fran has some women over back at the house. Grandma Ethel switches the men's beer for the women's fancy coffee, and soon the women find themselves happily getting drunk and watching sports. Meanwhile, the men have a much less fun time when they are chased by a fearsome predator into a cave. They are not the mighty hunters they have claimed to be, and instead sit around drinking coffee and discussing their feelings. Overall, it's a fun, feel-good kind of episode about embracing the parts of one's personality that they might not be used to. It doesn't get bogged down in being preachy either, and has fun with playing the different characters off of each other.
Guys, there's a monster outside?
Robbie, perhaps it's more important that each of us grapple with the monster in here.
I especially love the puppet used for the Predator. He was first created for a Jim Henson Hour episode called The Monster Maker, and the beast appears in several other episodes of Dinosaurs, always a welcome sight. Number 7. Into the Woods. This episode is about another disastrous wilderness trip. In the even more ancient times of dinosaurs, children would be left out in the woods for the wilderness rite of passage. Their time alone, and potentially in danger, would make them appreciate their families. The time has come for Baby to take the rite, although in the relatively modern times of the series, it means he has to sit on a pedestal in the park alone for about 20 minutes. Earl, Robbie, and Roy end up getting stuck in a tar pit, and only Baby can save them. The easily distracted child ends up wandering off with a strange little creature named Woody, who lives a life of sugar and video games in his own little Pee-wee's Playhouse. Baby must now choose between sheer indulgence and his family. Aside from having traces of a coming-of-age story with Baby resisting temptation, this is a purely wacky episode with lots of laughs. Take special note of a character named Blarney that Baby obsesses over early in the show. This would not be the only time Dinosaurs took a jab at this purple entertainer, as we'll see later in the list. Number 6. Network Genius. Earl is chosen at random to preview the new TV lineup as an average consumer. He doesn't understand any of the shows, and only enjoys the test pattern. Naturally, his opinions are disregarded until every show fails, except the test pattern. Suddenly, Earl is the voice of the people, and one of the top executives. He begins greenlighting stupid shows, and tweaking pre-existing shows to be just as brainless. This ends up spreading throughout Pangea until everyone's intelligence drops to a dangerous extent. Now Earl must choose between the idiotic shows he loves, and the good of everyone else. The highlight of this one is, of course, the shows we catch glimpses of. One of them is called Box Full of Puppies, which are played by a group of real, adorable, probably very confused retrievers. And they're not afraid to make fun of themselves either.
All right, Doctor, it's late. Time to put on your pajamas.
Not the pajamas, not the pajamas! Not the pajamas, not the pajamas!
It's amazing the way a phrase like that can catch on.
Number 5. Nature Calls. Fed up with changing diapers after making a single attempt, Earl tries to potty train Baby. Baby does not like this development, and runs out into the wilderness to be free to go where he wants to go, so to speak. Earl, finding the empty bathroom, worries that he has accidentally flushed his son down the toilet. This one was a childhood favorite, since it was one of the only readily available episodes on VHS. Dinosaurs is probably best remembered today for Baby Sinclair and his catchphrases of, "I'm the baby, gotta love me," and "not the mama." Of course, the show is much more than that, but the baby-centric episodes still make me smile. He was the fan favorite for a reason, and it wasn't just the marketability of the character. His episodes are often very funny. My personal favorite moment is where a group of swamp creatures attempt to rationalize what a toilet is from an outsider's perspective.
Everyone uses the same chair.
But wait, what if you gotta go
And someone's already using the chair.
Then you have to wait. What if you can't wait? You have to.
Yeah.
Number 4. Dirty Dancin'. Sex education is the topic of one of the most risque episodes of the entire series. In the world of Dinosaurs, the prelude to sex is the mating dance, and it seems that this foreplay is vital to the sexual experience, to the point that it has just as much importance placed on it as the happy ending that follows. Robbie has become obsessed with the dance. He wakes up at night after dreaming about a girl he likes to find his legs flailing in dancing motions. When he talks to the girl at school the next day, he is unable to contain himself and begins dancing in the classroom. Children in the audience will be confused, but adults will get the innuendos immediately. This all happens before the theme song, I might add. Fran is concerned that the teens are not getting properly educated about the dance, and none of the other authority figures want to do anything to help.
This school has always operated under the guiding principle that if we don't teach it, they won't do it.
But what if some of them do it anyway?
Let them! Nobody can blame us.
Robbie refuses to talk to his mother about the dance after a series of embarrassing moments. Only Earl has the ability to communicate with his son on this delicate matter, and he needs to hurry. A dance hall has opened up where you can pay a woman to dance with you, and Robbie is soon in over his head. This episode, unlike some sitcom plots about sex, is not directed at teens, but rather at their parents. Although the message of responsibility can be heavy-handed at times, the sheer amount of blatant innuendos and clever jokes make this a very enjoyable episode. Number 3. Georgie Must Die. Buckle up, folks, there's a lot to unpack on this one. Baby and all the other dinosaur children are obsessed with Georgie, a singing hippo character. After Earl refuses to take Baby to meet the entertainer at the mall due to the hilariously long line, he decides to act as Georgie himself in a homemade costume. Georgie's lawyers immediately swoop in and arrest Earl. In jail, Earl is visited by Georgie himself, who is much crueler and nastier in real life. The hippo plans to make an example of Earl and leave him to rot in prison, while he uses his appeal to children to take over the entertainment industry. Now, only Earl can put a stop to Georgie's reign of terror and lazy public domain songs. Like the previously seen Blarney character, Georgie is a very obvious spoof of Barney the dinosaur. I think a lot of us remember either loving Barney as a kid, or singing the many playground chants that involve Barney getting killed in different ways. Some of us did both at different points. While the Barney craze has ultimately died down, the dinosaur was a pretty big thing around the time this episode was made. It feels like there was a personal grudge against Barney with this episode, since at this point, the dinosaur was proving to be major competition for Sesame Street. Henson people have to stick together, especially considering that Dinosaurs and Sesame Street shared puppeteers, notably Kevin Clash. Since Dinosaurs was aimed at adults as well as children, they could throw some punches that Big Bird couldn't. Literally in this case, as Earl gets pretty physical with Georgie in the finale. Even so, Sesame Street had their own jab at Barney in an episode with Booby Bunny, a children's entertainer who sings repetitive songs with lazy lyrics that are all set to the tune of I've Been Working on the Railroad. It's a good example of the kind of jokes Sesame Street would throw in to please the parents watching. Kids wouldn't understand why Maria looks so annoyed at this character, but moms and dads certainly would. This was also the final episode of Dinosaurs produced. Although the actual finale wrapped up the show on a bleak, cautionary note, when I watched through this entire series for the first time, I was sure to end it on this episode. I understand the gravity of the actual finale, and I applaud the sheer balls it took to do it in the first place. But I'd rather end my personal viewing on a funny note. Seeing two men dressed as dinosaurs, dressed as hippos beating each other up, is a great note to end things on. Number 2. And the winner is... The Grand Elder of the Dinosaurs dies, leaving his position open. Earl's evil boss, BP Richfield, wants to take up the mantle as Supreme Leader. To guarantee victory, he forces Earl to run against him, and purposely throw the election. Earl at first blindly follows his boss's orders, but soon realizes that Richfield is completely corrupt. He decides to run in earnest, but then realizes that even if he wins, he'll have no idea what he's doing. Although The Simpsons and South Park's scathing takes on the two-party system are probably better remembered, Dinosaurs really doesn't pull any punches with this one. Pangea finds themselves trapped between utter corruption and a well-meaning but dangerously incompetent buffoon. This is peak dinosaur satire, and there are so many wonderful moments, like Richfield's incredibly literal take on trickle-down economics.
See, rich folks tend to live in big houses on the tops of hills. And so if we give them all the money, some of it's bound to slip out of their pockets and roll down to where the poor folks are.
The funniest non-political running gag is Baby's name. One of the Grand Elder's jobs is to name all the babies, and he has a heart attack while naming the Sinclair's child, leading to Baby briefly receiving the legal name of Og, I'm dying, you idiot. I'm almost sad that one didn't stick. Number 1. Baby Talk. As often on this show, a seemingly simple action leads to chaos for Pangea. In this case, it's a dinosaur shouting a 4-letter word on a hidden camera show. The word is smoo, and although it doesn't mean a thing to us, it's majorly taboo for the dinosaurs. Baby finds he gets a big reaction when he says it, and keeps swearing as a result. Rather than spend time with his son and monitor his television watching, Earl and a group of similarly angry parents go to the Grand Council of TV Censors and demand smoo never be said on TV again. When the censors agree, the parents begin making more demands, leading the censors to decide to make a huge list of outlawed words and topics, taking over free speech as a whole. This was an episode my family taped off TV when I was a kid, and for all I know, it was from the original airing, or at least sometime in late 1992. It's not the same for me without some of the weird image distortion in the opening scene on our VHS. Out of all the Dinosaurs episodes, I've probably seen this one the most. But beyond my personal memories, this is a very tightly written episode. They cram a lot of stuff into about 20 minutes or so, and it's really impressive. The subjects of raising a child and censorship could have been individual episodes, but they gel very nicely here. As always, there are plenty of hilarious exchanges, and an important message about the policing of people's voices. The moral about being careful what your child watches and the adult's subsequent refusal of responsibility is actually more relevant than ever today, with the internet being readily available to any kid who can operate a smartphone. Actually, a lot of Dinosaurs episodes have aged very well, although given what they say about society, it's not a great reflection on us. Still, it's a smart, funny show that deserves to be better remembered, and I hope that people can still appreciate and enjoy it today.
Try some beans or some beets. Candied yams make dandy treats. Got some grapes you'll adore. Say you'll be a herbivore. Open up, down the hatch. Easy to chew and easy to catch. You could eat the whole outdoors. Come on, be a herbivore. As a snack, we're a boar. Say you wanna be a herbivore. Go ahead, eat a leaf.
You gotta see this puppet show. It's terrific.
Earl, that's for kids.
Yeah, you'd think that because they're puppets. So the show seems to have a children's aesthetic. Yet the dialogue is unquestionably sharp-edged, witty, and thematically skewed to adults.
They look like puppets. I'm not watching.